All right, so let's talk about why I texted you last night. Daronte Jones is the new defensive coordinator in Washington. Obviously, has been up there for a few years. What can you tell? I saw your tweet last night, which I thought was pretty telling. You said a very deserving promotion for Daronte Jones. It means the Vikings will at least have a new DBs coach, but very deserving promotion is what stuck with me. What do we need to know here?
Yeah, I mean, Daronte Jones is a guy that's worked for a lot of different defensive coordinators, even in Minnesota, and has a wide, I would say, a wide variety of experience in different schemes. He did spend the 1 year as a defense coordinator on the college level at LSU in between, but this will obviously be his first in the NFL. But he was. I feel like when coaches can span multiple different regimes, whether it's a head coach or even just a coordinator, and they are loved and admired and respected by all those different coordinators. In the case here, he started off with Mike Zimmer and his scheme, and then went to Ed Donatel and his scheme, two very different schemes, and then to Brian Flores and his scheme. And frankly, Brian Flores is not an easy guy to work for, in the sense that he's very intense, he's very aggressive, very exacting, and Daronte Jones was like his right-hand man here for 3 years, and he did not come in here with him. They didn't really know each other before that, and so he's clearly very adaptable, clearly very good on a human scale in terms of people to people. Can pull from a lot of different areas of scheme experience, and so you guys know more than me about the commander search, but it's not an ideal situation when you're already 2 years into a regime and you're looking to change coordinators. But I think they got a guy who has a chance to adapt to exactly what the head coach wants and to execute it with his own flair and to motivate players to come along with him.
Well, I don't know if you know, Kev, but it's a very pessimistic area down here. So every time they hire somebody, if it's not like the name that just rolls off the tongue, like everybody knows who the person is, the fan base seems to get a little worried. Would you say he's someone they need to be worried about, or would you say they should give him a little bit more grace?
No, I mean, like, I understand if people would be worried about someone who really hasn't done it on this level. I mean, every great coordinator got his first job somewhere, so like totally. That it shouldn't scare people. But I understand why it would. Like, you don't want to be the fan of the team that is maybe quote unquote taking a chance on someone who has to adapt to what the expectations are, to what the personnel is, and to be able to, in their own way, execute those things. And so I think he has a lot of experience doing that. So if people are worried about the fact that he hasn't been a coordinator before, I get it, but I think he's demonstrated a lot of reasons to feel like he has the ability to overcome that lack of experience in that particular chair. And I think you'll find as you get to know him that he's a very easygoing, smart, communicative type of person who can get those things done. He's not going to be Brian Flores. He's not going to be Mike Zimmer. He's not going to be whatever other coordinator that people might want to see him emulate. But I think he's got a lot of those people in him now, and deserves at least I think there's a lot of people around the league rooting for him because of just the way, as well liked as he is, and probably deserves some time to show whether he can do the job or not.
So, Kev, do you think will he bring the Brian Flores super aggressive blitz schemes to Washington, or do you think it might be some kind of combination of all the different defenses he's kind of coached under?
Yeah, I mean, I think people, like, I think there's only one guy who can do the Brian Flores scheme. It is so unique, and it's so, and the scheme, like, I couldn't even, like, in a few sentences tell you what the Brian Flores scheme is, other than the fact that it's different every week. It's wild and aggressive and unpredictable. but a lot of it comes from the depths of his mind. And
right.
but the interesting thing is the year that Daronte Jones was at LSU, he actually sort of coincidentally, he never worked for Flores or anything, but he sort of coincidentally tapped into some of the concepts and philosophies that Flores uses in terms of breaking convention. One of the things that Flores brought here is that when he blitzes, it's sort of assumed that when you blitz, you're going to have to use man coverage behind it because of just the math of it. And he often uses zone. And so that was something that sort of coincidentally and independently, Daronte Jones had experimented with at LSU. So I do think there's the possibility for him doing some things, under the approval of the head coach, that are not conventional and not things that if you were sitting at day one install, you would necessarily expect. But in terms of are we going to see, the position, the volume of positional neutrality that Brian Flores uses in terms of using Harrison Smith as a defensive end or a defensive end as an outside or defensive tackle as an outside linebacker, or just the degree to which Flores does things that you don't expect or would never conceive of. I don't think that anybody really could produce that, but I would be shocked if Daronte Jones has a defense that sort of sits back in coverage and just lets offenses dictate what they're going to do.
Like I like people that do things that are unconventional. I watched one of the playoff game this weekend. It was like 8 to 9 people on the line, and when the ball was snapped, 2 people rushed. You had 9 people drop out. Even the defensive lineman dropped back, and they used to call this here a zone blitz back in the day, where the D tackle would look like they're about to rush, and they drop up. And I've seen quarterbacks throw it right in their laps. So those type of things confuses quarterbacks, because quarterbacks look at certain keys and they just let the ball go. They normally don't even look where they're throwing it. They just let the ball go. And if he could bring something like that, I'll take it.
Yeah, he has a lot of experience in sort of the post-snap world, I guess you'd call it. If you're an offense in the NFL, really on any in any team and facing any opponent, and you think you're going to know who you're throwing to before the snap, then you're taking a big risk. And so what the best defenses are doing is making the quarterback adjust after the snap and after the pre-snap read. And so that's a big part of what Brian Flores has done. And it's something that I think Ed Donatel tried to do a little bit in 2022 when Daronte Jones was here. And so that's a very important part of NFL defenses, and there's no doubt that Daronte has had a lot of exposure to that. And I should also point out that Flores, during preseason games, and you can say what you want about preseason games, but he did give Daronte Jones play calling during a few of those preseason games over the years. And so it's not as if he's going to walk into this in the first preseason game in Washington will be the first time he's ever called plays on the NFL level, the defensive signals at least. And so, and I don't think Brian would do that for anybody, but he definitely did it for him.
Talking with our friend Kevin Seifert here. Of course, you can read Kevin's work at ESPN.com. You can give Kevin a follow at Seifert ESPN. Coaches are generally only as good as their talent, and I think Washington needs more talent on their defensive side of the football for sure. Are there any free agents to be, pending free agents in Minnesota that you could see Jones trying to bring with him?
Not people whose contracts are expiring. There might be some salary cap cuts. Interestingly, I don't know if it'll be Jonathan Allen, but they signed 2 veteran defensive tackles in the free agency last year, Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, and so I wouldn't be shocked if one of those guys ends up out there. And so, I don't know the extent to which they have a relationship, with him being on the DBs and pass game coordinator and those guys being on the D line, but we kind of think that at least one of those guys might either have to adjust their contract significantly or could end up being a salary cap cut. I'm just thinking through, the Vikings are going to have to replace Harrison Smith probably because he's probably going to retire. I don't think his deal is coming up. His deal is coming up, but I don't think he's interested in moving teams at this point in his career.
What a run he's had. Yeah.
He's still playing well.
And he could play next year and probably be fine. It's just a matter of when you just say like I've had enough, and so like that's really what we're kind of waiting on here. We assume that based on sort of the way things played out they had a sort of a send-off in their last regular season game that Harrison Smith is done, but I guess in theory his contract will be up, but I can't think of anyone obvious that he would that Daronte might be looking to bring from here.
Just because every time I see this man play football, it's generally against Washington, and he generally makes one huge play. Did it in Miami, did it in Minnesota. Andrew Van Ginkel has a big number. His cap number is almost $20 million. Any chance there? I mean, he's going to be 31 with a $20 million cap number?
I don't think so. They redid
That's
his
a smart
deal.
football player, man.
Yeah, he and Flores have been connected at the hip here for a while. Like he was in Miami when Flores was there for a while, and then on Flo's, you could say suggestion or demand or however you want to put it. He was signed here as a free agent. He had a little bit of injury trouble at the beginning of last year, but he finished strong. And I can't imagine that would be a player that they would be looking to part ways with on a salary cap situation or a cash situation. That he's still a core defensive player. And we're assuming that Flo is coming back here now because he hasn't interviewed for any of the remaining head coaching jobs that are open. So I guess I would be shocked if that were to come about.
You find a good player, you better keep him. We always look at the age in the media world. Better look at that player's performance on that football field.
Yeah, and he's such a perfect fit for what they do with Flo's scheme, and Flo builds a lot of his scheme around what he can do, and there's just a ton of unique skill sets there that he's worked years to develop, and I think they probably want to like ride it out until it doesn't exist anymore, and that I don't think is coming anytime soon.
Interesting, and the other thing I wanted to ask you about, just because you are covering the Vikings, living that world every day, how are Vikings fans handling Darnold's success this season?
Oh, I mean, like it's been a classic case of revisionism. I mean, every fan you hear from now is like, I can't believe how stupid they were to have let him go, and look what they were left with is J.J. McCarthy. And but if you were to rewind 12 months from now,
they all wanted him to be gone.
I heard of were like, and I get it. You draft a quarterback number 10, J.J. McCarthy, and everybody's excited, and they want to see him on the field. And people forget that the Sam Darnold's last two starts with the Vikings were really bad, and he had a big part to do with that. And so I don't remember a lot of people being, I mean, it's not often that you let a guy who produced the way Sam Darnold produced leave. In fact, I think he was only the second quarterback in NFL history to change teams after throwing for 30-plus touchdown passes. So it doesn't happen very often, but there were defensible reasons for why they did it. The mistakes that were made there at the quarterback position extend primarily to their overconfidence in JJ. I mean, they were the ones who saw him behind the scenes and were the ones who had the most information to judge whether it would be okay to let Sam go and have JJ be the starter, and that's where the mistake was. And so, but yeah, fans are struggling. And the other part is, Clint Kubiak is the most recent previous offensive coordinator here. He was Mike Zimmer's offensive coordinator in his last season before he was fired and Kevin O'Connell took over. And so the Vikings' most recent offensive coordinator and their most recent quarterback are both in the Super Bowl.
That's crazy.
It's a double whammy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But sometimes change of scenery makes things a lot easier for you.
And people get better too.
Totally.
Like I watched Sam Darnold in that NFC Championship game, and that he played much better than he did in those two games.
He was awesome.
So,
yeah.
You got a lean for the Super Bowl?
I mean, I have a hard time. I don't know. I'll be curious to see what the spread ends up being by the time we get to the game. But I would assume, I'm amongst many people who see Seattle as a heavy favorite, and that's who I would pick. You know, the Patriots have been great at proving people wrong, but like all the signs that you would normally be looking for in terms of quarterback play and in terms of experience and in terms of play style seem to lean in the Seahawks' favor.
Yeah, I mean,
minus
Seahawks,
4.5 right now, right?
Yeah, minus 4.5
like,
now.
It's already gone from 3.5, so like I would think people are gonna be jumping on that. You know,
If it gets high enough, B, you know me, I got to take the points. I'm a take the points guy, but we got time before that.
Yeah.
Kevin, thank you for the time, dude. I appreciate
Kev.
you know reaching out to you and just being available. Thank you, man.
anytime. Thanks, guys.
All right. That's our guy, Kevin Seifert, covers the Vikings for ESPN.com. You can read his work there. Give him a follow at Seifert ESPN.